What would you do? What would you do? My mentor asked me when I worked in mental health, what would you do? So I was standing there after my mentor had asked me this question, and I thought I had a semi-spectacular, answer for his question. And I told him, I'd collaborate with my colleagues and I'd come up with a plan together to try to implement one that everyone is happy with. And have you ever had that moment when like a teacher or an interviewer asks you a question and you think you know the answer and you have a spectacular one in mind, but then you go answering it and they give you nothing, no response, no facial expressions to show that you're on the right direction. So then you just keep waffling on and kind of dig your hole a little bit deeper. So I was standing there explaining to my mentor, and he had his arms crossed and his eyebrow raised. He didn't say anything, and I finished waffling on, and he looked at me, paused for what I felt like a really long time, and said, what would you do? So, fellow Toastmasters and guests, this is a classic example of my predominant leadership style, and it's what you call a democratic leader. And the hallmarks of a democratic leader is that they take the community consensus to make decisions. So they take your input, and your input to come together and make a decision together. Now there's pros and cons to all leadership styles. One of the cons of the democratic leader is it is ineffective in time-scarce environments. And as you know, in mental health, things can change like this. I've had enough, guys. I'm gonna get all of you. I'm gonna smack all of you. Stay away from me. What would you do? So in this moment, with my natural democratic leadership style, it's out the window because I don't have time to collaborate with my team members and come up and formulate a plan together. So this is actually one of my weaknesses. So what happens generally in these situations is that someone who is more authoritative comes and takes control of the situation. And one of two things generally happens. Situation one, the nurse comes in and is able to de-escalate the client, bring them back down to a level where they're calm enough to discuss the issues that they have. Situation two, the nurses call security with a show of force and enforce the client to take medication and to be restrained into an isolated room. Unfortunately, in my work environment, these situations do come up. I work in mental health, and at times it can get quite hostile. And there are situations that you do need to enforce these rules because we have to keep our patients safe, our other patients, and the client and the staff safe as well. But it becomes a problem when nurses and staff members default to scenario two, where they enforce and kind of reprimand. So what is it that I have to do to improve my leadership? Effective leaders are able to take tools and positive attributes from different leadership styles and implement it at the right moment, the right time and environment. It's like the yin and yang symbol. There's light and there's dark. You need both the dark and the light to complement each other to make a whole. To be an effective leader, you should be able to use tools from not just the democratic leadership style or from your own strengths, but you should work on the other leadership tools as well that you can ask them to become a great leader. But to be honest with you, in these moments, I get scared. And I'm not necessarily scared of the aggressive patient. I'm scared of how my colleagues will look at me if I go against the grain and do something that they don't default to. If I do something against the norm and the culture of the ward, I may be ostracized from my nursing colleagues. And this is quite scary for me. But that is what great leadership is. Spectacular leaders lead by example. They step out of their comfort zone and push the boundaries. We call them leaders because they go first into the unknown. Now you may ask me, look John, it sounds pretty cool, but I'm not a leader. I'm at the bottom of my organization. No one really cares. But I put forth this to you. There are some with high authority. For example, your managers. Now, you will won't necessarily do everything because you want to, but it's because they pay you. But then there are people at the bottom of the organization who you will follow because they are absolute leaders. And that is because leadership is a choice, not a rank. So I'll ask you again, what will you do?